You renewed your care for me. See, it's evident that Paul loved the church in Philippi. He loved that church. I pray you love this church. I pray this is a place of refuge for you, a place of contentment for you, a place of peace for you. If you can't find that here, then go somewhere where you can. You don't need to live in misery. You need to be content, and maybe, but I will tell you, I hope there's a love for this church. And I have felt that love because of the things you do for the church and about the church, and certainly that's much of what I've seen from you. He had proven his love while he was among them, and he continued to express his love them in the letter that he wrote. You know, it's pretty neat to think that the circumstances he was still thinking outward. He wasn't just thinking inward. You know, if we're not careful when circumstances hit our lives, what can we tend to do sometimes? We can tend to turn inward. We can tend to think about our own woe is me's, our own issues, our own problems. But Paul was still looking outward. He was still encouraging the church. He still believed that, and I'm confident that what gave him the ability to have peace and joy and contentment in that environment was that outward looking, was that ability. Because when you begin to look beyond yourself, sometimes your attitude changes drastically, and all of a sudden you're not so looking at your own self. It's easy to get alone in our thoughts if we're not careful. And that's why I think we need to be out and moving and around and doing things that allow us to get, maybe even to use the word distracted in some way, to be able to look outward. See, the church in Philippi was facing financial struggles. Many of the people in the church in Philippi were living in poverty. I want you to get that perspective. They were living in poverty in the church in Philippi. Most of you here today are not living in poverty. That is not where you are. Yeah, you may say, I could use a couple more dollars here, a couple more there, but you're not living in poverty. In any sense of the word, if we took your present financial circumstances and took them and placed them in many places in the world, you would be the richest person in that country by far. It wouldn't even be a contest. Now, I realize we don't have to worry about them as much because we're not with them all day, and so we compare ourselves to those around us, and we see other people that have more. But in essence, we do have more than what we need. But you know what? In the midst of all that poverty, guess what they were concerned about? They were concerned about their former pastor and sought any means possible to assist him. Now, I'm not referencing me in that situation. I'm referencing the fact that they were more worried about Paul and his circumstances and the church in itself than they were even concerned about themselves. In 2 Corinthians 8, 1 through 2, it says this: "We want you to know, brothers and sisters, about the grace of God that was given to the churches of Macedonia. During a severe trial brought about by affliction, their abundant joy and their extreme poverty overflowed in wealth of generosity on their part." In the midst of their poverty, in the midst now, that exact amount. But I'm going to commit, it's real now, that exact amount. But I'm going to service, it may be